Hey folks, Nick here from Another BookTube channel, and today I'll be reviewing two books, The Dream Hotel by Laila Lalami and Butcher by Joyce Carol Oates. It's been a while since I've done just a regular book review, so I wanted to do something. Both of these books I read recently, and they both stood out to me, and I was trying to decide which one would I rather do, and then I figured, just like, why not both? What's the big deal? You know, I can do whatever I want here, and it makes sense because these books have some things in common. They're not too similar, but they are both about large groups of women who are being held in facilities against their will, and those facilities are run by men, or at least like a male figurehead who is lording over everything. That's really where the similarities end. These are two very different books with very different intentions, but whatever. The connection is tenuous enough to do a joint review. So I'm going to start with The Dream Hotel by Laila Lalami, which is a great name, by the way. Laila Lalami, because it forces you to say la 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 right in the middle of it. It's like a little poem you get to say whenever you say your name. Okay, so that's so stupid. What's The Dream Hotel about? It is a science fiction novel that's basically about a private company. What's it called? I forget. That is contracted by the government to just kind of oversee the digital footprint of everybody in the world. And based on their online behaviors and electronic behaviors, anything they interact with that's electronic tracks their behavior, and they are given a risk score. And if their risk score gets too high, they are not arrested and not detained. They are retained to a retention facility, a retention center, where they can be monitored until their risk score lowers and they are no longer a perceived danger to themselves or anybody else. So it's a preemptive retention. Think like Minority Report kind of meets 1984. And what's on top of this is it's a little bit of a futuristic world. So they're also monitoring people's dreams. People get this sleep chip basically put into their head. It's supposed to make them sleep better and more efficiently. But when you sign the terms and conditions and you don't read it, it turns out you're basically giving up the right to the privacy of your dreams to this company, and they consider your dreams to like within your risk score. So the main character of the book is Sarah, and she is retained after she has a dream that determines, it's deemed that she is now a risk to her husband because of the dream that she had, and it's, she thinks it's ludicrous. They've got twins at home that are very young. She's being kept away from her family, and the whole book is basically about her time in the retention center and the horrible experience there. One thing that I really love about this book, and I like this book a lot, I really loved it, is that even though it is a book about women in a facility that is run pretty much entirely by men, there is no reaching for the low-hanging fruit by Laila Lalami, and like sexual assault is not really a threat here. Like, I feel like that's always just the easiest out for stories like this, where it's like, how do we make the female character just like really go through it? And it's like we throw a sexual assault her way, or like we keep the threat looming over her at all times. And it's so boring and it's so lazy. And that is not something that's present here. And I think that is wonderful, because there is just so many other ways that these characters are put through it that are not related to the fact that they are women. Like, I think it's a deliberate choice that it is a women's facility run by men. I think that's on purpose for sure. But the book isn't just solely focused on like their bodies being under attack. These women are, it is a extreme invasion of privacy like mentally. Like having your dreams infringed on like this is a violation. There's these all of these people are still being violated. It's just that we didn't have to rely on the easy out to do so. I would also say the majority of the attention of the book and the themes of the book are more so related to like AI and just the over prevalence of technology in our lives and our over willingness to sign our lives away to it and to just sign the terms and conditions without actually reading them. And I do think that one day that will be the undoing of every single one of us. I really do. And this book really freaked me out because it is, I feel like it's not too far off. Like with the exception of the dream tracking, because I don't think we're quite there yet, everything else about it seems completely plausible. Like just using an algorithm, an AI generated based algorithm to read through all of your social media posts, see who you're friends with, see who's calling you, who you're texting, and determining like, oh, you went to high school with this person who was arrested for robbery, so that raises your risk score a little bit because you spent time with them. Maybe that rubbed off on you as well. Like there's not using any kind of human context, it's just using a computer to judge and jury of everybody. I feel like it's really not that far off. And I feel like once a company does decide that they can like privatize this and monetize it, most importantly, it'll happen. Because that's another thing that the book is saying. It's also a criticism of capitalism because the retention center is a privately owned facility. And so like if like everything there, the women have to pay to use it. Like if they want to use the phone, they have to buy a phone card. If they want to use the computers, they have to and send an email, they have to pay per email. If they want snacks, they have to pay for the snacks. Like nothing is free to them. They still have to pay for basically everything. I think just like their basic meals are free and are provided by the facility, and that's it. And the whole purpose of the facility, as you see in the book as it goes on, is to just keep the women in there so that they keep spending money there, and also grow the facility. Put on a new wing, see if they can fit more people into the cells. So this is also talking about privately owned prisons in America that we have. Like this is all of this stuff in this book kind of exists already, and so it's sci-fi that you don't have to go too far to get to, and that really freaked me out about it. I also just generally found the main character Sarah to be very compelling. I thought her drive and her need to get back home to her family was very sympathetic. The thoughts that she has about just like the indignity of what's happening to her. I was feeling her frustration every step of the way. There's a lot of just like injustice in this book, and people behaving irrationally drive me nuts. Like in real life, in media, whatever. Like a character who cannot be reasoned with makes my blood boil. And so this is a book of just like an entire society that has bought into this algorithm and they are unable to be reasoned with. And it drives me nuts. And I feel like, again, we're headed there if we're not already there. So Dream Hotel, my arbitrary and subjective grade is 9 out of 10. I loved it. Now let me move on to Butcher by Joyce Carol Oates. I struggled with this one much more so than Dream Hotel. This is one of the more disturbing books I've ever read. This is a very graphic book, and it was mostly a pretty unpleasant reading experience, but I did still like it. So Butcher is the life story of it's historical fiction, but Joyce Carol Oates used a lot of like real medical histories to populate it. So it is the fictional biography of the father of gynopsychiatry Silas Aloysius Weir. And he's basically just like the 1800s version of an incel who somehow finds his way to running a lunatic asylum for women. Now, that's how it's referred to throughout the book. The book is mostly his journals as he's keeping note of the various experiments that he's doing on his female patients. He sometimes claims because he genuinely wants to help them, but mostly it's because he wants to make a name for himself and be remembered for something. But also, it's just because women don't like him because he sucks. So he's just getting back at them. That's really in here what it's all about. And God, just this, it's rough. It's a rough read because it is deep medical trauma horror, and it is perpetrated entirely on women, and it's just nasty. Now, because it's written as though it's his journal entries, it's not overly descriptive. It's not overly embellished. It's not self-indulgent. It's clinical, and that kind of makes it worse because he speaks so flippantly about just like doing these terrible things, and it phases him not at all. And so you're reading it, and I'm wanting to scream at the page, and I'm wincing constantly because I'm like, oh God, no, don't do that, don't do that. What are you doing? That's not right. Just a lot of really messed up stuff. There's one of his nurse assistants he's obsessed with. It's like she's 13 when he first meets her, and she's like a porcelain doll. She's albino, white hair, white like eyebrows, pale blue eyes, and he is obviously in love with her, infatuated with her. He keeps her nearby, and he does a lot of surgeries on her, or experiments on her. And at the end of the book, we get her autobiography, sections of it where she's talking about her, like the experience from her perspective, because everything that he writes is very noble and like, I did this, I was helping these women. But meanwhile, the entire time he's saying these ridiculous things that like maybe they really did think this stuff in 1850, but today it's so obviously wrong, and he's not listening to anybody. He has a God complex completely. And when his female nurses try to tell him, like, you need to use some kind of anesthesia on this patient, they are in pain, he's like, nah, don't worry about it. She's a savage. She can't feel anything. So, and then just yanking their teeth out. Like, it's a tough read. But it is a good one. But it's a good one that I can't recommend to basically anybody because it is just so very unpleasant. I also found the diary format to be a little bit inconsistent at times. I just found that, like, particularly near the end of the book, I wasn't quite sure who was really like speaking or who was narrating anymore. But overall, I'm really impressed with Joyce Carol Oates and her willingness to just like go to these places. She's 86 years old now. Maybe she was 85 when she wrote it. And this book does not feel like old woman yelling at cloud. This feels like a youthful, modern voice filled with righteous indignation about the long history of women being oppressed in terrible ways by very stupid men. Like, if I didn't know anything about Joyce Carol Oates, I would guess that this book was written by like a 27-year-old, just like fired out of a cannon, who had like this thing to scream with all of her chest. But instead, it's just like little 86-year-old Joyce Carol Oates, who's just like, I've been writing like this my whole life, and I'm not going to stop. So that's Butcher, a tough read, hard to recommend unless you are okay with more disturbing material. For that reason, I'm going to give it an arbitrary and subjective grade of 7 out of 10. Do with that what you will. I don't think I would ever read it again, but I also think I'll never forget it. So, mission accomplished, Joyce. Good job. So anyway, yeah, those are some books that I read. Let me know if you've read either of these and your thoughts on them in the comments below. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today, but now it's time to get back to reading.